ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। In this session, we'll be discussing from the 6th verse of the 7th chapter of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Anarthopashamam sakshat bhakti yogam adhokshaje lokasya ajanato vidvams chakre satvata samhitam. The meaning of this verse is, the material miseries of the living entity, which are superfluous to him, can be directly mitigated by the linking process of devotional service. But the mass of people do not know this, and therefore the learned Vyasadeva compiled this Vedic literature, which is in relation to the supreme truth. The description continues about Vyasadeva meditating in trance in order to prepare himself to compile the Srimad Bhagavatam. He first of all realized the truth by the method suggested by his spiritual master Narad Muni, and he had complete vision of the absolute personality of Godhead with all his parts and parcels. That's what is described by Srila Prabhupada in the purport. Srila Vyasadeva saw the all-perfect personality of Godhead. So the personality of Godhead is the highest aspect of the absolute truth, and here it is described that the personality of Godhead is all perfect. There is no trace or tinge of any defect or any shortcoming in the personality of Godhead. Moment it is said there is a person, immediately people think in terms of their own experience of personalities of this world. But the Supreme Lord doesn't belong to this world. He belongs to the all-perfect spiritual world. That is his abode. It is complete and perfect in all respects. So, when it is described that Vyasadeva saw the personality of Godhead, it is qualified. He saw the all-perfect personality of Godhead. Now, Srila Prabhupada further explains what does it mean. This statement suggests that the complete unit of the personality of Godhead includes his parts and parcels also. The Lord is always complete and he is never without his parts and parcels. He saw therefore, what all did he see? He saw therefore his different energies, namely the internal energy, the marginal energy and the external energy. The Lord is always with his energies. So Vyasadeva, when he saw the Lord, he saw his different energies also. He also saw his different plenary portions and parts of the plenary portions, namely his different incarnations also. Even though the Supreme Lord is one and only Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he is not a limited person. He has many different forms of incarnations, plenary portions, parts of plenary portions. And Vyasadeva also specifically observed the unwanted miseries of the conditioned souls who are bewildered by the external energy. This was explained in the previous verse, and here the remedial measure is given. And at last he saw the remedial measure for the conditioned souls, namely the process of devotional service. This is the perfect remedy for the suffering of the conditioned souls. What is it? It is the process of devotional service. This devotional service is a great transcendental science and begins with the process of hearing and chanting the name, fame, glory, etc. of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. This is the beginning of the process of devotional service. Revival of the dormant affection or love of Godhead does not depend on the mechanical system of hearing and chanting. Generally, people, when they do something repeatedly, the process tends to become mechanical. Just like routinely we do so many things very mechanically. But the process of devotional service is never a mechanical process, because it is the full involvement of the spirit soul of the spiritual personality 100% involved in this process. Then only the process is effective to the extent of achieving perfection. Even if somebody does devotional service in a mechanical way, there is benefit. There is a benefit, but it is not sufficient to take us to perfection. So, Srila Prabhupada says this transcendental process, it solely and wholly depends on the causeless mercy of the Lord. Bhakti is something that is bestowed by the Supreme Lord. When the Lord is fully satisfied with the sincere efforts of the devotee, He may endow him with His loving transcendental service. So the complete perfection comes after the devotee has rendered devotional service with all his efforts, sincerely, trying to please the Lord. And when the Lord is pleased, He bestows the perfection of love of God. But even with the prescribed forms of hearing and chanting, that is, just one has begun, there is at once mitigation of the superfluous and unwanted miseries of material existence. The effect on the heart of the chanting and hearing is immediately felt even by the beginner before he is able to even make advancement. Immediately. What is the immediate effect? The mitigation of material miseries. This is very important to understand, and it is a very great encouragement for anyone, that immediately they begin to feel the benefit of this process. Such mitigation of material affection does not wait for development of transcendental knowledge. This is what the impersonalists think, that unless there is knowledge, there is no progress in spiritual life. That is for the jnana process. Bhakti process doesn't depend on development of transcendental knowledge. Srila Prabhupada says, rather, knowledge is dependent on devotional service for the ultimate realization of the supreme truth. So, knowledge is dependent on devotion, but devotion is independent of knowledge. Devotion helps us to awaken knowledge within our heart. So, the process of devotional service, it directly acts on the contaminated consciousness to purify. But the devotee has to sincerely engage in the process and patiently wait for complete purification. The complete purification takes some time, because we have been associating with this material world for a very, very, very long time, millions of lifetimes, and we have accumulated so much of this material contamination, life after life after life after life after life. In ignorance, we have been simply engaging in sense gratification. So, that has to be cleansed away before we can actually experience the transcendental love in reciprocation with the Supreme Lord. Before that, we have to cleanse the heart. These material miseries are described as superfluous. Superfluous means they are actually not giving any benefit for us. They are simply useless stuff. That is why they are called anartha. In fact, anartha means unwanted, something which is unwanted. Anartha, this body itself, material body itself is anartha. It itself is anartha. But in the material conception, we think we cannot exist without the body. Why? Because the body is the means for our sense gratification, for our material enjoyment. That material enjoyment, yes, we can have to whatever extent we can get some material pleasure by the means of the body. But as spirit soul, we are not meant to enjoy materially. Neither material pleasures give any satisfaction for the soul. The Bhagavatam raises this point. What ensures that there is complete satisfaction for the soul? Yena atma suprasidati. The satisfaction of the soul or the real self, that is to be considered. The satisfaction of the soul is never possible by any material means, material methods, material pleasures, material arrangements. It never even touches the soul in any way. So therefore, people who are seeking real happiness, they are frustrated when they make different arrangements for enjoying materially, or they seek material happiness, and they never are satisfied within their heart, never are satisfied. So, this point is explained in the Bhagavad Gita. Yehi samsparshaja bhoga dukkha yonaya evate adyantavanta kaunteya nateshu ramate buddhaha. One more verse that explains what is the nature of transcendental happiness. Sukham atyantikam yattat buddhi grahyam atindriyam. You see, this transcendental happiness is an experience of boundless transcendental joy, which is experienced with transcendental senses, atindriyam, not with these material senses. These material senses are useless for experiencing any spiritual happiness or transcendental happiness. So, material pleasure is simply a sensation, and it is a temporary thing. It is also called chapala sukha, momentary happiness, and it eventually leads to miseries only, whereas transcendental happiness completely pure bliss, and it is never momentary. It is never momentary. So, I will stop here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.